Matt Bernier joined by DRF's national handicapper Mike Watchmaker, the third and final for this Saturday's weekend warrior race number 9 at Laurel Park. It's the $100,000 Richard Small. You've got a field of 12 going a mile and an eighth on the main track, Mike. You're going to go with one of the local hopes in here, a horse that just absolutely loves Laurel Park, the 9 of Fleet Willie.
I'm going with the Fleet Willie because I'm basically trying to tip over the first two favorites in this race, Paige McKinney and Watershed. At least I think Watershed will be the second choice in this race. I'm pretty convinced Paige McKinney will be the favorite. But like you said, a Fleet Willie really likes the racetrack, and the race that kind of jumps off the page for me is his Everett 4 starts back early this year in the Harrison E. Johnson Memorial, which was at this mile and eighth distance over this Laurel racetrack, and he ran dynamite in that spot. He was up against Matt King Cole, who I think is a very talented horse, and I have a high regard for him. Matt King Cole was in absolute peak form at the time, and he and Matt King Cole, knocked each other silly through the stretch. I mean, they were really bumping like crazy. And Fleet Willie only got beat ahead in that spot, and I think that race is plenty good enough to win it. He got a bit of a freshening after that, and then last time out, his third start off a layoff, he ran his best race since the Johnson Memorial, winning the Governor's Day handicap at Delaware Park. It was a strong performance. It was a track record performance. I'm not going to be hung up on the fact that it was a track record performance because track records are a function of speed of the racing surface more than the ability of a horse. But still, it was a dominating performance on his part. He's drawn an outside post, as I mentioned in the video that we did for the Safely Kept. In general, I much prefer outside trips on Laurel's racetrack because it's a track that just generally has an outside flow to it. I think a Fleet Willie's going to be involved from the start, and I'm just hoping he's sharp enough now to take care of Paige McKinney and Watershed.
You brought up Paige McKinney and Watershed. They're going to break next to one another, post 4 and 5. Paige McKinney, hard to knock. All he does is go out and run his race. Whether it's good enough or not, that remains to be seen. Watershed still feels like a little bit of an underachiever in the grand scheme of things based on what he had shown early on in his career. Of the two, you're trying to beat both of them, but of the two, which one do you prefer?
Well, I would say Watershed because he's going to be the bigger price of the two. And Watershed's race 3 starts back, and winning the Ben Ali was a strong effort, and that effort puts him right in the middle of this. And 2 starts back, he ran in the Pimlico Special. Last time out, he ran in the Suburban. Those were tougher races, just pure and simple. The thing about Watershed is that he hasn't been out since the 8th of July, and to my way of thinking, the way I interpret his past performances, I think he's a horse that needs an outing before he runs his best race. So I'm just thinking he's not going to be quite as sharp this time out as he will be next time. You have to talk about Paige McKinney. I mean, if you don't like Paige McKinney, I don't know why you're watching this video because you don't like the game if you don't like Paige McKinney. I mean, he won a second straight stakes last time out. He's won 20 races in his career. He's just been a mid-Atlantic terror. He's in many respects, he's like the 2-turn version of Ben's Cat. And by the way, we should note that Saturday is Ben's Cat Day at Laurel Park, and they do have 6 stakes races there in honor of that late sprinting legend. But in any event, Paige McKinney's very good, but I do think that Paige McKinney might not think a mile and an eighth is his very best distance. I mean, I think he's better at slightly shorter distances, even though he won this race in 2015. But the other thing to note about him is that he missed a good period of time because of a tendon injury, and his buyer figures have fallen off a few points. He's had several races back now, something on the order of 6 or 7 races or 8 races back now. And I think he's established a new buyer ceiling, which is a little bit lower than what it used to be. I mean, he's a 7-year-old, but he had a tendon injury, and I just don't think he's quite as fast as he used to be. And I think that brings this field together. If the Paige McKinney of 2015 was in this race, I would have used another race because he would have been very hard to beat in here. But now we're talking about the 2017 version of Paige McKinney, and I think he might be a little bit more vulnerable.
A couple other interesting shooters in this race. You've got No Distortion, the number 3 horse, Securitas, coming down from New York. And then you've got the 10, Just Call Kenny, who was a graded stakes winner 3 starts back. Is there anybody else in this race that you're intrigued by?
Well, I did take a look at Just Call Kenny in here. His race 3 back was really good. And I think that, his form has definitely regressed over his last 2 starts. And I'm not one much for bounces and stuff like that, but I do think that the pattern suggests that he might be set for a rebound this time. And I think he's going to be a bit of a price because I think, losses in his last two, particularly his loss last time out, might throw some of the betting public off the trail.
Race number 9, Laurel Park, Saturday afternoon, the $100,000 Richard Small going a mile and 1/8 on the main track. Mike is going to go with the number 9, a Fleet Willie for Claudio Gonzalez. Mike, great stuff as always. Best of luck this weekend, and we will talk again in a few weeks.
Thanks, Matt.